Welcome to the Global Digital Conference on App Dev. Better code, faster. I am Priyanka Vergadia, Customer Engineer here at Google.
And I'm Mark Merchandani, Developer Advocate.
We are your hosts for today. This conference is being streamed in 3 regions, America, APAC, and EMEA. This is our first global conference of the year. Google's experts will talk about the tools that can help you build better and more secure code and improve productivity.
So let's summarize what you're going to see today. First, we're going to have a keynote with Google Cloud leaders, Fali Bhatt, and he's going to address the future of developer productivity. Then we're going to have our customer T-Mobile come on stage and talk about what they've seen with Google. We'll have 8 breakout sessions within 2 tracks running in parallel, and we'll have a guided quick lab demo at the end on Google Kubernetes engine.
If you are wondering what the 2 tracks are about, you can choose between serverless, which is building and shipping applications faster, and CI/CD, where we talk about building, testing, and deploying with speed and reliability.
Now, before we go any further, let's explore the event platform that you're connected to for this event. I'd like to draw your attention to the Schedule tab at the top left of your screen. You'll be able to view the full schedule by region and get details for all the sessions. You'll also be able to get information about the 2 different tracks, get abstracts, start times, and details for the speakers. You can then click on the Watch Live link to actually see the content. If you'd like to add captions during any of the sessions, click the toggle in the upper right corner of the video players, and we have lots of languages available.
And let's not forget the possibility to ask questions. Google's expert will be holding live Q&A session. So this is your chance to ask anything about improving app dev with the cloud.
So that's awesome, but my first question is, how do I actually submit a question?
Great question. You'll see on the left-hand side the Q icon. Click on the icon and ask your questions at any time during the event. And we'll do our best to answer them. Here's the cool thing. Anybody in the community can reply or vote for your questions. So feel free to jump into the conversation and answer other people's questions too.
Last but not least, for our viewers and registrants today, we're going to be offering Quick Labs credits for websites and web apps Quest. You can use the hands-on training today to become a cloud expert, and then you'll be able to follow up on everything you've learned at the conference today. Also, from now until the end of the year, we're giving you access to 1 free month of Developing Applications with Google Cloud Platform, which is a specialization on Coursera.
Watch out for the thank you email after the event for details. You will find all the information to activate your courses. Complete the Quick Labs quest and add the badge to your resume. In just a few moments, we are going to be back to have our interview with Abby Lundberg, and the live Q&A will open. Please join the conversation and get answers to your questions. So stay tuned and we'll be right back with Abby. Now, we're pleased to have with us a fantastic guest, Abby Lundberg, contributing editor at Harvard Business Review Analytics Services and former editor-in-chief of CIO magazine. She's here to give us a high-level view of how software development is affecting the business world today.
Abby, thank you so much for being with us today. Now, you just completed the HBR research report on DevOps that was sponsored by Google. Can you tell us a little bit more about what's in the report and what it covered?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me. So the big news is that modern approaches to software development are really starting to capture the attention of business leaders, and not just at tech companies. So they're seeing this as a way to better engage with their customers, to be more responsive to their fast-changing needs, to get products out to market faster, and to increase productivity and efficiency. So 3 big wins for business leaders. So let me just tell you a little bit about the research first. We surveyed over 650 business leaders around the world, and these were people from companies ranging from manufacturing companies, shipping companies, banks, insurance companies, you name it. So the big finding was that the vast majority believe that the ability to get software developed and out into production quickly is really important to their business's success. So 86% said it was important. But look over at the pie on the right-hand side, in that little slice of red there. Only 10% said their company is very good at it today. So there's this really big gap. And the reason for that gap, I believe, is a challenge to scale. Because you talk to any big global company, they've got pockets of Agile, they've got pockets of DevOps happening, but they've seen the value, they're trying to pull it up and make the whole company work that way, and that's really hard to do, and we'll talk about why that is.
So do business leaders understand these new development changes and methodologies?
Yeah, well, they're starting to. So 80% said that the speed and quality and approach that they take to software development is a business issue, not an IT issue. But some of them know a little bit about that, so they sort of understand design thinking or what it means to work to a minimum viable product. But it's not consistent by any stretch of the imagination. So if you look at this chart, the companies, the one that is really interesting to me is the third row down. The companies that aren't yet doing any DevOps but are planning to, so they're about to launch, only 8% said their business leaders understand DevOps methods and terminology. And even that 8% is a little wishy-washy on it. If you see that, it's that lighter green, not the dark green. So that's a problem. And that's the gap that companies are facing.
Well, so with that in mind, is it even necessary to get those executives involved in this process? Can't we just leave the developers to kind of run with the DevOps idea?
I know they're doing such a good job all on their own, but the problem is that while these individual teams are operating great, once that gets executive attention, and if executives don't understand what makes that work, they start meddling. So there's kind of a catch-22. In order to make this scale, you have to have executive understanding, buy-in, and support so that they can drive it through organizations have very fixed cultures. They're these big beasts that it's hard to make change happen. So executives need to do driving that, but at the same time, you don't want them meddling. But if they understand how it works, that's how you get there.
So what can the development teams actually do to get this executive buy-in?
Yeah, so actually there is a big role for the development teams because those are the people who understand it best and can evangelize it up.
Right.
So engage with your business leaders, talk to them about what you're doing and why it's important and how it works. So a couple of things on that. One of the things I've seen be really successful is when people use anecdotes or analogies that come from that business leader's world. Mm-hmm. So for example, I interviewed the CIO at a mid-size insurance company, and his CEO loved to use the term win ugly. And he used it in a sales context, right? We're going to go out, we're going to get the business, we'll finesse it after that. And that was a perfect analogy for minimum viable product, right? So when the CIO started rolling out their DevOps program, he said, okay, this is about winning ugly. And they got it like that. So that's the first thing. Second thing is tell stories. Make them concrete. This is a real example. It doesn't have to be from your company. If you don't have a lot of experience yet, it can be from Google or another company that has some great traction in this. Tell the story about what were the goals, what did they do, and what results did they see. Right. And then finally, help them understand, get them engaged. If you can get a business leader onto a DevOps team, that's going to be the fastest way for them to internalize what makes this work. Where does that magic come from?
Now that makes sense for the business leaders, but for larger companies that have a very rigid hierarchy in place, that could be a really big challenge, right? How do the organizations take a look at this whole thing?
Absolutely, and culture is a funny thing. It's hard to change. And I worked with a big auto manufacturer, global company, that's really in the midst of trying to do this. They had to get approvals for something really minor. I won't say it because then we'll identify the company, but they had to go through 5 levels of approval, including a vice president, to get a purchase on something that was very small. And that's the kind of things that companies are up against. So it's a lot about culture change. The culture that a number of people, when I was reporting for this report, talked about was Google, actually. They said, this is the culture we're trying to get to. It's empowered, it's collaborative, it's fast, doesn't have a lot of overhead baggage. That's where we're trying to go. So it's just not that common in big global companies today.
So Abby, we see that there's a lot of stress on culture. How can companies actually achieve this ideal culture for DevOps?
Right. Well, one of the things in very competitive companies that have a strong sales culture, it's shifting away from that sort of superstar culture to a more team-based and learning culture. Mm-hmm. So this is about saying, we're all learning together. Nobody knows everything, so how are we going to do that? And so there's investment in learning, for one thing. But it's also about the structures that are in place around that. So how do you shift from, something simple like shifting from individual performance metrics to team-based performance metrics. So I'm going to just put this slide up here for a second because this is something you should really check out if you're looking for some good framing on the cultural attributes. Check out Dora's most recent State of DevOps report. They base their work on, this is a work from a sociologist named Ron Westrom, and his work tied cultural attributes directly to organizational performance. And so Dora's research really ties into that, and it's really fascinating to see how companies are making that shift and where you need to head. This is a good framing for that.
So for that actual shift, what are some practical steps that companies can take to go from where they are now to where they should be?
Yeah, and this is all about being hands-on. It's about experiencing the difference because it is so different. So one of the things that we saw was that the leaders, the people who are really good at doing that, were providing that hands-on immersive training in these new methods. So it's not about, it's not about talking to people about how things work. It's not about sitting in a classroom. It's about actually doing. And so, it's actually taking a DevOps approach to DevOps, right? We try something, we learn from it, we go from there. So some companies are doing that by sending out agile coaches around the world. Some are, we interviewed one company that has a center of excellence where they bring people in and go through that, again, with deep immersion and reflection, and then they go back out to their companies to apply it.
So Abby, we're almost up on time. Any final thoughts for the audience?
So the fastest way to a business leader's heart is through the bottom line, right? So just make sure that you're not wasting time on projects that aren't going to move the needle on the business. So, it's about customer retention, it's about profit margin, it's about speed to market, all of those things that business leaders care about. And if you're just launching a new effort, start with something that's going to move the needle in one of those metrics. And do it small, though. So, start small, get those results in quickly, and then you can scale from there.
Mm-hmm.
Abby, thank you so much for joining us and sharing those insights.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks, Priyanka.
Thank you.
And that download will be, for the report, will be available by the end of the week, so keep an eye out for it.